What's up, guys? Hope you all are doing great. Today, as promised, I am following up with a update video on the 500 Abarth, and this is the track little pocket rocket that's kind of an Assetto Corsa road legal build, with the exception of the 6-speed that's on the Assetto Corsa. But I kind of studied that car in depth, and I've seen it, spent some time with it in real life, and yeah, decided to apply some things that I liked and some things that I didn't like, I left out. So let's start with the exterior. So when I first got this, it had red powder coated wheels. I decided to keep the original wheels. The Assetto Corsa wheels are on the way, but unfortunately they use wobble bolts. So for track use, these wheels are safer than the OZ, kind of like a dish rally wheel that they have, the Legenda. Anyways, so I am keeping the OEM Abarth, but they are fresh, clean, powder coated, and they look wonderful. The other thing that's quite interesting on this car, interesting is an understated word, is that these are the actual Assetto Corsa slick tires. So these are the Michelin Pilot Sport slick tire. These are full slick, track use only tire, and they are absolute glue. They are bubble gum. They're not normal tires. They are a bit heavy, and they do put a little bit, I can feel more stress on the drivetrain. But even on normal roads like today, when it's dry, you cannot drive this thing in the rain. Absolutely not. You will lock up every time you touch the brake, and it is very, very dangerous. I unfortunately had to do that on my way home from the gym one time, and it was really terrifying. I had to stop and wait until the road dried up and then continue on the way home. So yeah, you definitely, with a car like this, you need two sets of wheels so that you can swap out, and that's the plan for the future. The Legenda are going to be for road use like this with normal whatever Toyo Proxies or anything like that, and these are going to be the track only Michelin slicks. So because we have slick tires and all that stuff, we have also upgraded disc brakes, so you have the slotted rotors front and rear with slightly more aggressive brake pads. What else from the exterior? You have the few bits and pieces of carbon fiber here and there, but these are not really performance stuff. Now for the track, because it is going to be tracked, obviously we have the Assetto Corsa cooling bits in the front. I decided to opt out of the Assetto Corsa front splitter because I noticed even on the Assetto Corsa race series like they have in Europe, the first thing that usually breaks on track is the splitter because it is really too low, and I didn't want that. Hopefully it won't affect the performance of this car at high speed, but it is what it is. And the other thing that I had to do, of course, being a track car kind of, is you have to have the front and rear tow hook. Now these are bolted onto the frame. I might show that later in the video on how I did it, because this is a legit tow hook. This is not for show, and it is bolted directly to the frame, and it's good to go. So that's all I can think of as far as exterior wise. Oh, and we know this has an upgraded Madness exhaust system that's fully straight piped, which is kind of like factory but wider diameter. I just like the tips that I put on there. It's like a carbon fiber gold tip, so they look pretty neat, and yeah, just interesting. I wish they were a bit longer though, to kind of pop out from the rear. The turbo on there is I have the Garrett sticker because the turbo is the OEM turbo. I love the Garrett turbo. I will not go to a TD04 and some other turbos. I've heard very bad reviews, so I'm going to stick to what's been proven and what's been reliable, and also what doesn't produce the most lag. So from the inside of the car, obviously being a track car, I had to go with the full auto power roll cage, and that's what I said in the last video. Also we have the wiper delete here. So yeah, so I didn't want to go with a roll bar or anything like that, because this is going to be tracked quite aggressively, I might say. So it does need to have a full cage, and even this, honestly, I still didn't weld the two sidebars because they won't fit, unfortunately, with the stock seats. And speaking of the seats, I really wanted to keep these seats because I think it looks so beautiful, and these seats are unbelievably comfortable. Coming from race cars and coming from other sports cars, I just want a car that you can drive on the road that actually has some comfort to it. And these seats, I cannot tell you how amazing they are for everything. You can track them. They come for the harnesses, they come with a hole for the harnesses. You can take them to the track. Let's make the wider angle. Yep, you could take them to the track. You can, you know, drive them comfortably on the road. Your spouse or your friend or your family member will be super comfortable. They're adjustable. I cannot say enough good things about them. The one thing that a lot of people said about these seats is that they sit quite high, like a school bus stance or like a monster truck status. But I didn't really mind that because, again, I come from a world of driving these low sports cars with these carbon buckets and all that stuff. And, you know, after a while, you want something different. So the extra height and the position of these seats was welcome to me until I put the auto power roll cage. So the roll cage sits lower than the roof, and being a track car, I needed that because I have to have the full safety for the track. But just for your info, roll cages are not safe to use on public driving on public roads because you do not want to hit your head. God forbid you get in an accident or anything happens, you do not want to hit your head on this. And I'm going to show you right now the clearance. Let me just flip the camera. All right, so here I am, and this is my head. This is the clearance I have with these seats. So check this out. And you definitely don't want to get in an accident like this. This is potentially fatal. So roll cages for, you know, normal driving on the road, it can be terrifying. But I will say that that's this way because the seats are quite high, as I was mentioning before. So the seats that I'm sitting in, unfortunately, I might need to change them to race seats, or at least, you know, change the driver seat to race seats. But that's the only time I noticed that the seats are quite high. They really didn't bother me. The roof is very high, but the cage is too low, and this is kind of a safety hazard. Even with a helmet, you don't want to be this close to your roll cage. Obviously, I will put some padding like I did for the passenger. It's just I left this exposed right now because with a helmet I literally have to move my head a little bit. So that's one thing about the auto power roll cage, the full cage, that you should know, is that the clearance between this and your head is very, very close. Now granted, if you just get the roll bar in the back without, you know, the full cage and all that stuff, you don't really need to worry about that. So that's just something that, you know, it's good to know before buying, which I did not know. I thought the cage was gonna sit so flush with the roof. It's not the case at all. It really does, you know, sit quite low. All right, back to the interior of the car. So we just have a little bit of carbon stuff here on the steering wheel, nothing major. Nice gear shifter, shifts like butter. Again, little bits of carbon pieces. We have the draggy, you know, equipment here for the lap timing on the track. The pedals I absolutely love. These are the Sparco 3 pedal. These are for rally cars actually, and it works perfectly here. Not only are they lighter and much more, you know, grippy than the OEM. I really hate the OEM because these are actually drilled and bolted onto the pedals. The OEM are just, you know, kind of like sleeves and they sit there. I will show you, obviously, yes, we have fire extinguisher with a strap, you know, Velcro strap, and it's secured there. But we also have another one back here. Being that it's a road car as well as, you know, a track car, I didn't want to opt for the full fire extinguishing system that might be engaged from the exterior of the car, because I'm not turning this into a track only car. I still want to drive this on the road. So yeah, we have here the Go pedal, you know, instrument, the Go pedal gauge from Madness. So this is really sweet. This I can adjust the you know, sensitivity of the pedal because this is a electronic pedal. And yeah, you can make it, you know, as comfortable and as laggy as you want, and you can make it as responsive as you want, to the point where it becomes like an on-off switch. So for track use, you want to go with the race mode all the way to the right, and for road use, I like the sport mode personally. But yeah, we talked about this in the other video. Yeah, a little bit of carbon here. What else am I missing on the interior? Let's check the back. So interior wise, not much really. Just the strap here I changed to this, you know, thicker and prettier, in my opinion, color. Again, I know it's a track car. I didn't want to go full bare metal exposed. I still want the carpeting. I still want it to look somewhat presentable. Let's check under the hood. All right. Let's check here. Okay. All right, so when it comes to performance, it's not just the exhaust that it has. It's not just, you know, the extra better brakes and all that stuff. You have the Eurocompulsion. This is the much better intake, and in my opinion, I've spoken to Eurocompulsion and I've actually had a look at the Assetto Corsa. The Assetto Corsa engine bay is horrible compared to this. This actually looks much better, and these are built way better than the intake on the Assetto Corsa. One thing I wish they did is that they made the breather sit a bit lower. It is a bit too high when you're trying to put stuff, because I wanted to put a torsion bar here, which I have, just didn't fit there, honestly. These aluminum billet caps are just, you know, for looks. It does have a Mishimoto, you know, full coolant hose replacement. Timing belts changed, the thermostat's been changed, all that stuff that you want to do. It's got the Motul race oils, it's got the Motul SRF brake fluid, new battery, you know, Turbo Smart components like the wastegate and all that stuff. It also has a forged intercooler. I think you can see it from here. One thing I'll say about the forged intercooler is that forged, not forged. So yeah, there it is. It sits so freaking tight to the front fascia, so it's just, you know, it takes a lot of work to get it in there. So if you're interested in putting one of these forged intercoolers, and I also have a forged oil cooler, you do have to make some modifications. So the forged oil cooler is right there. They are a bit expensive, you know. This stuff came, so the Eurocompulsion Phase 2 kit is really easy, and it's quite, you know, affordable in my opinion. But once you start going with things like, you know, Turbo Smart components, forged components like the front intercooler and the oil cooler, that's when it starts to dramatically jump up, especially when you're changing exhausts and you're doing suspension, which I have to mention as well. So I must say that this has a full set of Bilstein adjustable suspension. Now, I also decided not to use the Bilstein rear shocks because I loved the New Speed rear shocks, the ones made in Germany, like Bilstein, but it sits a lot more even. So the fronts are adjustable on the Bilstein as well as the rears, but for some reason I drove the car with the Bilstein rears springs and the No Speed rear springs and Bilstein shocks. For some weird reason, I loved more pairing the No Speed shocks with the Bilstein rears, and the fronts are just the Bilstein coilovers, which are, in my opinion, the better suspension, the better springs. I don't know if we can see them here clearly, but they are absolutely beautiful. We have the Madness coils. I will say I love the stock Garrett turbo that we have in the US, because in Europe they're actually underpowered compared to the US models. In the US model we have the turbo that's the upgrade for Europe. So, and I love Garrett. Like I said, I don't want to switch to, you know, the TD04s or the Honeywells or all that stuff. I've always loved Garrett turbos, and again, I'm not being paid by Garrett or anything to say this, but on most of the machines that I've driven, I've always had a great experience with Garrett turbos, and not only from the sound and all that stuff, but just, you know, consistency. They've always been very, very consistent. And like today, it is a ridiculously hot and humid day, and it drives so crisp and so beautiful. Another thing, because of the forged intercooler here, the fog lights on this thing are so useless. So I just use them as, you know, extra intake vents for the oil cooler and for the intercooler. And yeah, being in Abarth, you know that this is all vented here for extra cooling, because yeah, it does get hot here in this engine bay. And yeah, I don't know if I mentioned the Madness coils, but the coils on this engine from factory are not the best. So whether you go with Madness or you go with something like the Bosch, the ones on the Alfa Romeo, the 4C, they're all interchangeable on these Italian models. For the cooling here, we had to get this. I believe I got this from, I forgot the website, but I'll put it in the link. It's really, this is what's on the Assetto Corsa, and this is why you have the extra cooling ducts. I had to reroute things here because you know, when it rains, you don't want the water going into the engine bay. You want it to be rerouted down here. So yeah, that's it for the exterior. It just looks really pretty in my opinion, and it drives really great. I will say, even though I put the Phase 3 tune and all that stuff after getting the forged intercooler, and it has the bangs and pops and all these things, and the you know, more spry, let's say, feeling, the roll cage is quite heavy. So yes, I deleted the rear seats, but I thought it would be lighter, but it's not really that much lighter because it kind of evens out with the roll cage. Being a full cage, this is steel, so this is quite heavy. You know, it's not the lightest car in the world. And also, even though this is running over 200 something horsepower, it's still a heavy car for its size. It's around, I don't know, 2,400, 2,500 pounds, something like that. It's still heavy, and you can kind of feel it from the door when you hold the door. It's not a lightweight, very lightweight vehicle, but it's still relatively light. So it just took me time to get used to the difference in driving, because with slick tires, you need more power. They are really, really sticky. So you feel like you lost power because of the extra stickiness, but it's not really the case. Also, the shafts and the ball joints have been re-sleeved and re-greased, because those are a weak point on this car. You can have a lot of rubbers, the housing where the grease sits, it just cracks and sometimes it leaks. So, and it causes a mess inside the wheel. So if it pops, it starts to splash grease everywhere, and then potentially you can have a shaft failure. So these need to keep an eye on. Other than that, with this car, I think the main thing you have to look out for is, because of the mileage, the timing belt, the oil air separator, and this little, I forgot what it's called. It's this little filter on the side, like the oil air filter, that needs to be changed and cleaned. Thermostats, water pump. Yeah, it's relatively simple, but because of the engine size, you do need to look after it. And yeah, this is just sharing it with you guys like this as is. Want to take it for a drive right now and just, have a feel for it. I think even the key looks pretty, and it's a standard turn key, no buttons and push to starts, which I like. So we're back on public roads, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back in the first map, which is only phase 1 tune, or phase 2, sorry. So phase 2 is the first map, phase 3 is the second map. Alright guys, so it's nearing the end of the video, and you might notice something different. I decided to take off the Bilstein stickers that were here. I just think it looks a bit cleaner and nicer without it, that's as far as I'm gonna go with stickers and stuff on this car. I don't want to overdo it. I'm gonna close the hood real quick, or the bonnet, and let you be the judge of that. All right guys, so there she is with the hood or bonnet closed, and I think she looks much better and cleaner this way. I think it looks more attractive without too much stickers. Again, you guys could disagree with me, but I think this is the sweet spot. It really does look super factory. And yeah, man, as far as front wheel drive cars go, this is really an enjoyable pocket rocket to drive. And yeah, I'm having a blast with it. I wanted a nice little hot hatch that's front wheel drive, and I was recently, excuse the wind noise, I was recently looking at a few videos. I don't know if my algorithm is going crazy, but it was showing me some criticism about front wheel drive cars. But if you're a real car guy, you appreciate front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, X drive, whatever it is, we'll appreciate it. Even if it was one wheel drive, we'll find something to appreciate about the car. But yeah, it's just really unique driving style. I mean, just thinking about the old school racing, like the touring car championships with the Mini Coopers, the front wheel drive, how they used to race the big heavy V8 American muscles, and they used to compete, and it was just amazing. You know, this car is very, very capable. And honestly, I wanted to try something to show people that it can be affordable. You know, being a car guy doesn't need to be the most elaborate, most expensive, latest supercar or whatever. Cars like this, I would stop. Like, even if I was driving my Cobra or driving a Lamborghini or something like that, I would pull over and get out and talk to the person and you know, share that passion with someone who owns something like this. Even the Mini Coopers, which I love, the John Cooper Works and stuff. It's something about front wheel drive cars that I love, that it's like another page in your driving technique, because they drive completely different. You know, the torque steer, the lift off oversteer, and all that stuff is amplified with front wheel drive cars. And with cars that are not so powerful like this, when you track them, you really have to rely on the momentum. And yeah, now it's I was hoping to drive this car a bit more, but it started to rain a little bit while I was driving. Thankfully now it's stopped. But yeah, these are as mentioned, they are full slick racing tires, so you do not want to be caught in the rain on the way home. It happened once before, and you basically have to crawl home, and it's quite terrifying. But yeah, that's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really wanted to share this car with you guys, because I know, you know, I post a lot of videos of these crazy supercars and hypercars, and they're really unrealistic for most of the people. And this is something that anyone, any working gentleman or woman can afford, especially pre-owned, like this whole project. So I bought this car for under 10 grand, and I spent about, but I went crazy with it. So I spent about close to 15 on it, I would say. So all in, let's say all in, I'm 25, but granted, I did my own labor. Some things, you know, unless it was the dealer timing belt and stuff, that was the dealer. Of course, they overcharged me. But anyways, let's say under 30 grand for something like this, fully ready to go for the track. It's just wonderful. What can you get for $30,000? Now, if you want a proper race car, you can go into old school, you know, spec racer Fords and stuff like that. But if you still want, or radicals, for example, the old school radicals, like from the 05, 06, 08, you can find those cheap, and they're amazing. I think track day cars, radicals, are unbeatable in my opinion, or like an old Formula car, but you really need to be mechanically inclined with those. With something like this, it's not going to give you the thrill of a spec racer Ford or a radical, but it's something you can drive home. You have AC, you can listen to the stereo, you can take your friends, your wife, your husband, whatever, on the weekend. It's a nice car, you know, and it's obviously road legal, not like a full-on race car. So it's just nice. And I think for the money, these things are great for what they offer. And it's a shame that they're discontinued, you know. They don't make the 500 Abarth anymore. And yeah, I just think it's kind of sad. Maybe people weren't buying them so much. Maybe the demand in the US wasn't so high. I know in Europe, these things are still going like fire. Even in the Middle East, they're still being sold. But I feel like in the US, because it's pretty vast and big, it's not as much of a highway car as like an SUV or something. And yeah, I feel like people here still in the US don't understand, or didn't understand, the Abarths that much, hence why they discontinued them. But yeah, it is what it is. There's still some available on the market, obviously, for sale. If you want to tune them, I will say, however, I've been reading a lot about these, and the 2012 up to maybe 13, 14 are the most tunable of the bunch. So if you're looking to get a road track day warrior, I would actually look at the older models, which goes against what we usually do. You always want the latest with the less mileage. But honestly, if you really want to track it, or you want to shred it apart and build a race car similar to this, I would go, like I said, 12, 13, maybe 2012, 2013. Yeah, this one's a 13 model. So yeah, it's easily modifiable. And I don't really know what they did with the newer models, but I think they put some restrictions on there. Again, I'm not qualified to talk about what they did, just based on what people have been saying is that the older models are a bit more tunable. So now, as I said, guys, it is drizzling a little bit, not too much, but it's kind of safe so far to drive on the slicks. So I'm gonna do a little spin for you guys. Hopefully not actually spin, but an actual drive. So let's give it a go. Starting to feel a bit slippery, so I'm gonna call it. That's it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little munchkin, and yeah, as always, I will see you next time. Again, I'll probably add a oh well, I would have already added it before the video ended. On another day I will drive it and you know, make a little edit of the video, as well as taking it to the track. I have not tracked this yet, so very excited to see how it behaves on the racetrack. Hopefully there'll be some other cars that are in its league, and to be honest, even if they're out of its league, if there are more powerful and more track worthy cars, it would just be nice to see where this one stacks up with the big boys. So thank you for watching, guys. I will see you next time. Ciao. The inside of the car looks fabulous in my opinion. Everything looks super legit and nice. All right, so here's all the stuff that's been removed or replaced on the car. So I decided to put everything here with the exception of the rear seats because the leather and the condition of them are actually really, really good. I didn't want to, you know, ruin them by putting them here. But this stuff, it's all, you know, I'm fine with having it here because I'm not going to put this stuff back on the car. So yeah, just to take a look, we have the intercooler, the hoses, the clamps, the rear torsion bar, the full exhaust, as you can see. It doesn't look great, you know, this exhaust, but I will say it is a great exhaust. It's already straight piped, as you can see. The welds might not look so fancy, but these are actually pretty strong welds. And in my opinion, the only reason I changed it is because of the look. The sound was great stock, in my opinion, right now with these, you know, with this exhaust system. It's actually, I know I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's too loud, right? I might buy the resonator actually from Madness, because don't get me wrong, if you want to track this car and only track it, then yes, the exhaust works great. I also have the Eurocompulsion bangs and pops, which they put on the car because it has the stage 2 or the phase 2 tune, because the big intercooler here allows for that. And yeah, as you've seen in the engine bay, it's got a few modifications as well. So I just think it is a bit too loud, especially with the pops and bangs. It's really like obnoxiously loud. Don't get me wrong, to me it sounds great, but you know, in a neighborhood like this, when you're coming home and stuff, it's a bit too much. So I might tone it down from that aspect, as long as I don't lose power. But yeah, it's just interesting seeing all the stuff here, like I said, minus the rear seats, and you know, looking at it as a finished product. I really, really love this thing.